Call to order the zoning board, zoning bylaw review committee for June 3rd, 2025. First agenda, we have, let's kick the minutes till the end. I'll kick it over to Gabe to kick off.
Do you want to do attendance?
Sure. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just go down the line. I can't see the list of folks just because I'm on my phone in the car. So Tinio, aye.
Hilton, aye.
Mazar, aye.
Chanel, aye.
One more. Liana.
Sorry, I was yelling at my teenage son. Yes.
Great.
So we're on here.
Okay, so go ahead and take it away, Gabe.
All right, thanks everyone for coming out tonight. Especially it's such a beautiful afternoon. Yeah, so we've got the agenda up. Approval of meeting minutes, we can hold off until the end. Short-term rental bylaw, let's start with that since that's kind of where we left off. Let me pull up. So Jane is going to be taking, I was out last week, and so Jane and Dylan met last week to kind of go over most of the materials, but I'll be screen sharing. So I'm going to screen share the version of the short-term rental bylaw that Jane sent over to everyone. And then Jane, you can kind of walk us through it.
Okay. So what you've seen before was the model that had a lot of fill in the blanks for town name, etc. So I updated the document to include Mendon's name in there. It also looked like on your website that select board is more accurate than Board of Selectmen. So I changed all of those. And can you scroll down a little bit? I'm trying to remember what the other change was. It was, Dylan, did we talk about limiting?
Yeah, it was we were talking about limiting one short-term rental per person, I think.
Yes.
I wanted to ask if the committee was cool with that. Obviously, this will go to the general bylaw committee in the end, but we wanted to give them something that you guys are all comfortable with.
When you say one person, like one per person or one per property?
What do we have, Jane?
Okay, we'll stop up a little bit more. I think you just went by stop. B. So it says an owner may register to operate only one dwelling unit as a short-term rental if a person has two properties or owns one and is listed as the manager or an agent for a second that is owned by an LLC, for example. That person must choose one or the other to be registered as a short-term rental. In one of our communities, there was a word going around town that there was an investor coming in and buying up a lot of single-family homes with the intention of making them short-term rentals, and the town had a concern about potential impact to their long-term housing supply. And so this language actually comes from Great Barrington. So if it's something that you like or think is appropriate, we can leave it in there. Otherwise, we can modify it.
I think I like it based on that statement. However, I feel like one is just really restrictive. Does anybody have any thoughts on maybe like 3 to start with? And if we find that it needs to be adjusted, we could always revisit it at some other time. What is it? Any other? I don't really have any other input other than it just seemed really restrictive.
Again, this is my own personal opinion. I'm fine with it being restricted because I'm not entirely sure why we were doing short-term rentals anyway. But so my opinion is fine with restrictive, but that's also clouded by my opinion on short-term rentals to begin with.
If I can respond to Liana, I think the reason most towns want to do this is just to have a way to regulate it, to make sure that the way that a short-term rental is run is not impacting the neighbors in the community. to make sure that the unit that's being rented meets building code, has the fire egress that's needed, the smoke detector, carbon monoxide detector, that the Board of Health is on board with, that everything is what it should be. It allows for those inspections every year or so, whatever frequency the town decides to have for it. And it also allows the town to collect local room occupancy tax. So some towns like that aspect of it as well.
Thank you, Jane. I definitely appreciate that perspective and can see the benefits from that point of view. Yeah,
Mhm.
so for me, I'm fine with it being restrictive. So yeah.
I have
Lisa?
a question. Yeah, I have a
Yes.
question. So if we restricted it to say 3, would that mean when you say 3 is individuals, could they skirt around that by creating LLCs or different, whatever names, realty names to get around all that, or is would that not
Well,
happen
I,
or
I
not?
believe the way Jane just said it was that no, it took into account all of those items so
Mhm.
that
Okay.
it would you could definitely only do it once. Because if
I'll
you were listed
also,
as the
yeah,
manager on the
Yeah.
LLC, but so you could get around it by maybe listing somebody else as the manager, but now that person is the person. So, you know,
Mhm.
there's a
Okay.
way. I'm sure there's some ways around everything when you start to get with companies and all, regardless if it was 1 or 3. I
Mhm.
think in that aspect. And again, I'm not saying that we need to move it up. It just struck me as very restrictive, but I'm impartial to what the board or committee wants.
if I can just
Would-
also mention that the manager agent for an LLC is public. You can look them up on a state website, LLC lookup. So it's not like it's hidden. We can look it up when an application comes in.
Would we have any issues with if we did 1? Would there be any lawsuits or any issues in us being too restrictive, or is it something that you see in other towns that would just have 1 or 3?
I don't see any legal issues with it. I've seen other towns that have limited it. Some have limited the overall number of short-term rentals in the community that they'll license.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that was going to be my next question. Is it more of a concern that one person has multiple, or more of a concern how many are actually in the town at any given a license at any given time, right? Like, I'm not so sure why we care about the owner per se versus how many might be in the town at any given time.
Great point.
I think it's
So I
about.
would say
Oh,
that.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No,
So
go
I
ahead.
would say that if we limited it to 1 and 1 person per, and you limit it to a total of 10 for the town, then it would be 10 individuals. If we listed it as 3, then you could, ultimately it could be 3 individuals that could have up to 3. So if we did 1 and then limited the amount, then at least it was fair across the board to who's doing it, and we're not seeing somebody come into town to, like Jane was alluding to, making a business out of short-term rentals in our town, and they don't even live here.
I think part of the approach too is that part of this is to mitigate quality of life concerns with short-term rentals. And if you're limiting it to 1, you're making it extremely likely it's just the person who lives there or lives next door or something like that, rather than like Lonnie's saying, like someone who lives out of town. Like I think it's pretty unlikely someone's going to be living out of town with a short-term rental unless they have like a vacation home or something. In which case, again, if their vacation home, they're not going to want people trashing it. Brendan?
I just actually wanted to, that's the point I was just going to make. People that live here and are owner occupied, they have an incentive to keep the neighborhood nice and they care about the property, but an outside management company maybe wouldn't. So I just wanted to agree with you.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So I can't tell if we're deciding to do both, limit the per owner and the amount allowed in the community initially and long term as the box implies, and I'm good with both of those. I just wanted to just two nits. I think you have is owed by an LLC. I think you meant owned, and there's an extra period in the end. And then
You're right.
if we're really, sorry, and if we're really concerned about like that investor type situation where they're just gonna like, you know, do multiple different names of LLCs or shell corporations and, you know, really try to hide the ball and stuff like that, you might want to consider adding language about you know, affiliates and stuff like that. Again, I don't know how in depth you want, but that, you know, if we're trying to avoid the skirting around of the single owner because of, you know, games with corporations, you might want to think of language like that as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Mhm.
And if we limit the total number in town to X, it's not going to be an attractive market for a company like that anyway.
Do we have a number in mind?
One.
10.
No, I'm just kidding.
10, 20? Yeah.
I was just-
Yeah. What kind of capacity are we looking at? Are we looking at like 10? Or are we looking at 300? What do we?
I'd say 10.
Yeah.
That-
Okay.
That passes the sniff test for me.
Sounds good. So Jane, do you think you can make those changes? And then does everyone feel comfortable with us sending that over to the general bylaw committee? Because this is going to go to them ultimately, but we wanted to make sure you guys were comfortable with what we were going to hand off to them. Okay.
I'm happy.
I should know this, and apologies that I don't, but for general bylaws, is it the same approval process as zoning bylaws? Lonnie,
It
you
would
should-
go to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
and we-
town meeting still has to vote it, but I believe
Right,
that
sorry,
right?
that was my specific question. I should have asked that more specifically. It still has to go to town meeting.
I think one is majority and one is 2/3.
Yeah, I think
think
this is
this
general
is just
majority.
majority, yeah,
Yeah.
versus 2/3.
Yeah,
Okay.
zoning is 2/3.
Thank you.
All right, are we good to move on?
I'm okay.
Right. I will save those changes and we can talk about this on Friday to kind of get this wrapped up.
Who's gonna
Um,
kick that over to the general? Is it gonna be Dylan?
Yeah, I can do it.
All right, cool.
All right, next item. We have flag lots and we have shared driveways. So Jane put together a pro and con list, I think. That was Jane. Do we want to go over that, or Dylan? Do we want to go over that before we get into the bylaws, or would that be helpful for people?
Yes, I think so.
Jane helped me
Alright.
with it. I think Jane added a few.
I added a couple.
We
Okay.
all worked on
We all
it.
worked on it.
All right, so Jane and Dylan, do you want to go over this?
Sure. So shared driveways, we'll start there. I don't remember what I wrote. This was a week ago. Pros able to establish clear rules for property owners to live in shared drives. So if we have mandated deed language, we might have less conflicts. If, you know, we already have some shared driveways. So if we have future shared driveways and we have clear rules, then we'll have less chances for people to come and complain to the town about a private issue that we have to sadly turn them down and say, this is a private issue. But we get a lot of those calls. The expectations of how the driveway is constructed would be like set in stone. That way we're very sure about fire access, emergency vehicle access, things like that. A fewer curb cuts may increase safety on busy roads. So there's, you know, less turnoffs. That's just better than having like 18 turnoffs right in a row next to each other. Maybe less stormwater runoff because you have less driveways. Cons, shared driveways in general. I think it increases in like neighbor disputes because you are adding something into a deed where you have to have an arrangement with your neighbor. So when someone buys that house, most people when they're buying a house, they read through their deed and they understand what they're getting into, but there's plenty of people that don't understand what they're getting into and they don't understand, say, living on a private road. So living on a shared drive, you have to have some like level of communication and um, agreement on how you're going to go forward with maintenance and access and whatever else. There's more disputes that could arise if you have more shared driveways. There's longer stretches of roadway that are privately maintained. So if you have a shared drive and the 3 people on it are not maintaining it, then you're going to have trouble with fire access at all. Even if we said in the beginning, they'll have clear fire apparatus access, but then 10 years down the line, they haven't maintained the road at all. It's not on the town to make sure that that gets maintained. It's on private people. So 10, 15, 50 years down the road, whatever, there might be an issue with trying to get an ambulance up there in a snowstorm, something like that. Should we stop there and you guys want to talk about shared driveway before we move on?
Good, Leon?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Are we
Le-
just?
Liana?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. And again, I don't have an opinion on shared driveways, one or another. I totally understand the pros and cons and appreciate, Dylan, that you guys worked on putting that together. On the con side, are there things that can be put in the bylaw that would negate the con, I guess? So like, for instance, longer stretches of roadway, right? Like, and I'm not as familiar with shared driveways, right? But they don't necessarily have to be long roadways, right? You can have a shared driveway that isn't particularly long, right? So is there stuff like that that we would want to consider to like eliminate some of these, because definitely emergency access is a huge concern, right? Like, so maybe that could be eliminated by, certain requirements as to driveway length.
I did get a message from the fire department about adding in a particular fire code in that would hopefully mitigate that. So if it follows that particular fire code, then they have a better chance of getting up there. Or if it's just like a 10-foot, I don't know, a tiny little drive, then it's not a big deal. But depending on how long we make these, and you have that many feet of potential issue. My stance on it is that if you want a roadway that we're sure is going to be well maintained, either do a private road, which, you still don't have to have it fully maintained, but at least it's very obvious that it's a road, or do a subdivision and make a public road. That's the best way to make sure that you have access for emergency vehicles to your house. Yeah.
So
Did we go to the bylaw? Or
Yeah.
we can say something, Lonnie?
Yeah, sorry, I was just gonna say that, so, obviously I live in one, it's all family, so it's slightly different. Maybe, slightly different than what you expect. I'm also working with somebody on one now, that's already been, it's been approved. It's 2 houses off of a single drive. And it's a decent sized driveway for the main portion of it, because both houses are at the very end, and then they branch off. As far as the piece regarding like the HOA, if you would call it, just for lack of a better term, in the sale of the current house, because they're building a new house, the attorneys have worked together and drew up the agreement between of what it will look like as far as maintenance of the driveway, maintenance of snow plowing, things along those lines. So there's like you said, somebody, as Dylan alluded to, somebody not looking could definitely be in trouble if they weren't using an attorney for the closing or something. But with attorneys involved, it got very detailed, and they were able to actually hash it out very quickly in this instance. And I think that, it would be, if we put in there, if we put it in the bylaw, something about these agreements. So if somebody's, say we were to build another one, right? Say we were to build one with 4 lots on it, and that we would have an agreement ahead of time as part of the closing package for each house that we were going to build. That could be part of, if we get this out of zoning and into planning, right? Because in the planning board's more involved. Now we have more teeth into it. If we put these items in there, now the agreements can be built, whether it's a standard agreement that we just come up with, or depending on the project, it could be slightly varied. But those agreements being done ahead of time through the planning board, instead of when going through zoning, and then it's just up to whoever. So that's one of the, I guess, benefits is of planning board having more control over this.
Brendan, and then Anne.
Thanks, Gabe. And Lonnie, I just wanted to actually address a question to you, if possible. So I think at time equals 0, when these agreements are drafted up, certainly in the case of family, everything, works out. But what I'm most worried about, and I think Dylan alluded to this, is in 50 years, when none of the original inhabitants are here and all these houses have changed hands a few times, how do we ensure that these agreements have sticking power? Do they get cemented in perpetuity in the deed? And if so, what's the enforcement mechanism? So if people just don't do what they're supposed to do, and now we have X number of houses with no emergency access, that's a safety issue. And how does that get rectified?
So if you, again, going through the planning board with the agreement, like for instance, in this one, what we're doing now, and it's working out well, again, time will tell. The agreement is there's money that will be put in for maintenance of the driveway, right? So,
Okay.
and then you have an overseer, so it's not just the members. There's whether it be an attorney that can be the overseer, or a management company if needed. But there is plenty of mechanisms that we could add to this to make sure that, okay, hey, the road is, the main drag of the drive, right, with it is the shared portion, and then each person branches off of it as they're responsible for their own. But that main roadway, if you will, right, for lack of a better term, we'll just call it roadway, that portion would then be maintained by the monies that are put into those accounts.
Okay. And that agreement is established upfront at construction and put in the deed, and then it doesn't change thereafter?
Correct. Unless there was, some sort of, I mean, if it's in the deed, I mean, everybody would have to agree that, all the folks that live in there would have to agree to the change. But I mean, the change, in my opinion, would be, well, okay, costs are up. We all need to throw in $5,000 more so that we have, ample money in there to maintain this piece.
Anne, and then Dylan, and then Liana.
I just have a question, because I'm just trying to understand like where this should go. Right now, we don't have shared driveways, but like Lonnie, says that you're, putting one in. Is it the planning board that says yes? Is it the ZBA, or how is it happening now?
Yeah, so right now, so the lot was split, so that was through the planning board. And then they came to the ZBA in order to make it a shared drive or common drive. So they've been being approved for quite some time through the zoning board, and all the ones that, I don't know, when I was on the ZBA before, the first one that I had come across was AJ Fisk off of Blackstone Street. Now that ended up selling. It is still 3 lots. That had a very, very long driveway with a big crossing over wetlands. There was a turnaround put in for fire apparatus. And then, so it kind of came up to this little small turnaround, and then 3 branched off of there, right? The 3 lots branched off of that. That one ended up selling. There's still 3 lots. It's sold, but only 1 house has been built up there because the people only want 1 house. But in the future, if their kids want a house, blah, blah, blah. The other ones that obviously where I live was approved. We approved one for another one up on North Ave here. There was an the other one that I'm working on now. That one that was just the two houses. So yeah, there has been a push to do them again, in lieu of subdivision. So it's again reducing the amount of homes is, I think you guys heard me speak to it before. So, those are there's pros and there are cons. Again, if we can control it, I think through the planning board better, then we'd be in better shape.
So the advantage of having the zoning bylaw is at least there'd be some direction as to how it should go. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll just say right now it's through variance. Yeah, which is hardship based.
Yeah. And once it's approved, then you just do what you want. Like there's no direction. And I think that with the direction and the planning board overseeing it, we can gain a lot more leverage as the community to make sure that we get it. I mean, for instance, I think our frontage is 25 or 30 feet but it should be 50 feet, right? But back in the day when this one was approved before we even bought it, it was, nobody knew like what to do. So they went through it at that point. So. And I think too, the fire department, so like when we were doing ours, we worked with the fire department. And they didn't want something necessarily at that time, and this could change too. But I think that the fire department should be part of the oversight of the plans that are being presented, right? And they can say, okay, well, this one isn't that long. Maybe we don't need to turn around, but if it's really a long driveway, do we want a standpipe type of item to be able to have something? Because there was talk about one here for us at first, and then they said, it's not long enough. You're close enough to the road, you're fine. So they ended up not wanting us to put it in, because then that's another thing that needs to be maintained. But it can be maintained by that HOA, if you will.
All right, Brendan.
Yeah, are we still talking about common driveway? I had a question on basically the mechanism of how this works. So right now, by right, essentially, we only allow one building per lot in our zoning without a special permit. So my question is, how does the common driveway bylaw interact with the creation of multiple lots per parcel? And what's the limit? Like, are we allowing 2? Are we allowing 3? Or is it possible to have contiguous lots and just create essentially a mini subdivision without using the subdivision control bylaw?
I can answer that a little bit. So, splitting lots, I mean, that can happen at any point, right? I mean, you could do a common drive off of lots that already exist and look fairly normal, or you can do a split with the planning board and then go for a common drive after that. Maybe we do it at the same time if this is through the planning board. The thing we can do to make sure that it doesn't end up being more and more houses off of the same driveway is we limit how many houses can be on one driveway off of the public road.
Yeah.
I'm gonna share the bylaw so that we can go through it, but could we get a temperature check on the committee? Like, do people want to go forward with a common driveway bylaw?
I'd like to look at it.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't go over 2, because I just think it's way too complicated if it's going to be 3 or 4 people off of one driveway and they're not family members, and in 15 years, one person's not doing it. It just sounds like a mess. But I would consider, but depending on how the bylaw is written. I don't really understand those, like how the ZBA fits in, because I feel like a lot of times there's bylaws and then the ZBA says, well, you can just do that, Yeah, so I just don't understand how they interact exactly. What power do zoning bylaws have?
So a
well,
variance has to be by hardship, so they have to prove that there's a reason they can't follow the zoning bylaws.
And there's limited categories that are allowed as well.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go through this, but yeah, Dylan and Jane, if you want to kind of talk through what this is doing.
Yeah, the first statement was, do you want to call it a shared driveway or common driveways?
Common
I
is
didn't know.
fine.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't know if
Common.
there was a preference.
Right.
Earlier, some months ago, when we were first talking about this, we had talked about it being 18 feet wide. And then there was the consideration of, well, would you want it to be narrower if there was a turnout every, say, 200 feet or so people can pass? And so that would mean a narrower roadway, driveway. Less disturbance on the land.
So I would say that again, yeah, I agree with that, but I would say that maybe we start with 18 feet, but give the planning board the ability to adjust as needed.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so maximum grade of 10%, and a maximum grade of 3% within 50 feet of the street. Maximum length of 500 feet, but the planning board can grant a waiver due to geological considerations with the review and approval of public safety departments.
I have a question on the 500 feet. That sounds long. I don't know. At some point, it'll split off to two separate houses, but I don't, 500 feet just sounds really long to me.
I think that's primarily because you have to consider that the front lot is going to be a standard size lot and maybe at least a couple 100 feet deep or more.
Mhm.
So that flag portion needs to get past that point and then open up.
So,
Yep.
yeah, so you just said flag lot. So are we combining the flag and common driveway lot? I know that they're kind of synergistic, but
No,
Yeah.
they're separate. They could be related,
y-
but they should each
yeah.
stand on their own.
okay.
Yeah, in general, these do come into play and they have limited frontage in the front, and then the houses are further
Yeah.
back. So they often end up looking similar to flag lots. Typically.
For this language, at the discretion of the planning board, should we just change that to at the discretion of the planning board, or subject to modification by the planning board? Something like that.
Is there a minimum? Do we want to take a minimum standard and then allow the planning board to make it more stringent? Or are we allowing them to go up or down?
I think that for this number 7 is the standard. I believe if we check the subdivision bylaw, that's what a roadway would require,
Yeah.
and I think that's
Yeah.
that's a good requirement. That should,
Yeah.
if anything, it would be, you would go greater. I don't think
Yeah.
that you would give a waiver on that.
Yeah, you might have
Yeah.
different considerations based on, like, I don't know, wetlands or something, but I think this is a
Yeah.
good standard, and then the planning board can, change things if needed for certain. I just don't
guess,
know how to write that. Yeah.
yeah, I guess that was my point is, do we want to allow deviation only, more stringent?
Yeah,
or
right.
more material?
So for what would make this what would be a more stringent road requirement in terms of when we're looking at the material and the binder and the top course?
But that's
Oh, so that you could make it more stringent would be like making the residential the commercial, like that would be more stringent. Like
Okay.
making the
a 12-inch gravel.
yeah right.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
Because then you have to dig. It's more expensive. You dig deeper.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and it makes
More
it like
materials.
a more long-lasting road potentially.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think we can take this text out that's in red because a sentence later it says the planning board may grant a waiver. Maybe we want to just change that language and say may require. Trying to think of good language. It's opposite of grant a waiver, right?
Prohibit?
The planning board may make
They
a change.
impose conditions.
There you go.
Yeah, impose additional conditions owing to circumstances.
And that can go
Kinda
either
opposite.
way.
Yeah, you don't even need the hardship part.
And then we have this,
Yeah, you want to take the hardship stuff out too.
and you want to remove the extension.
Yep.
Yeah, and just do additional conditions based on the review and approval by the departments.
So just cut this to what I have highlighted.
Yeah, I think so.
And then do we want to eliminate this or
Yeah.
keep it? Eliminate?
That's fine.
Yeah, take out the
Yeah.
waiver stuff. Yeah, and then we'll leave it.
I'm not, it wouldn't be from a matter of convenience, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
take it out. Yeah, cool.
Here's
Maximum number of lots that may be served by a common driveway is 2. The center line radius shall be a minimum of 60 feet. Said driveway shall be located entirely within the lot served. Site distance up the street line shall be in accordance with Mass Highway design, and in no case shall be less than 200 feet. Brendan?
yeah, can
And
we
then
pause?
Lonnie?
Yeah, can we pause back on the maximum number of lots
Yeah.
shall be? Yeah, because I just want to really think through what is allowed and any possible, not abuse, but any wiggle room with this. Because I know, like, okay, so if we're allowing one per lot, and each one can have an accessory dwelling unit, etc. Just want to make sure that we think through this and make sure we're controlling it the way we think we should.
So an ADU, we won't have to consider it a common drive because it's part of the one lot. You'll have
Okay.
one lot with a house and then maybe an ADU on it, or it's a 2-family house and there's an ADU, but those are all one unit, like as a property. And the common driveway would serve multiple properties, if that makes sense. So we don't have to worry about the ADUs at least.
Okay. And essentially by saying 2 lots, are we saying
Yeah.
essentially two houses, 2 buildings?
We're saying 2 lots. So those 2 lots might have an ADU each.
Yeah, right.
So 2 lots that could be up to like 4 family units or, household units.
Lonnie?
Yeah, so just again, I think that number should be 4, not 2, because what we're trying to do is, I think that the way that we've been looking at this is that if it's just 2, they're just going to come in for a subdivision, right? So now we're going to be back up to 8. So by having it be 4, we're limiting that number that we would get in for subdivision, but also allowing folks to be able to, again, make it usable when it's just the 2 lots. Then you would just go through the subdivision process and put in a road and 8 houses. Now the town has to maintain the road. Another road the town has to maintain. Possibly more kids into the schools. So again, this was really the benefit of bringing it was to bring it to 4.
Liana and then Anne.
Yeah, so maybe that's something good to discuss is what was the intent for having common driveways? Because before you spoke, Lonnie, I was going to ask the exact opposite in response to some of Brendan's questioning, which was, I thought at one point we had talked about, that you couldn't have, a common driveway every other way. I don't know. I remember some vague discussions about like you could have a common driveway, but then there had to be at least a lot between the next common driveway. Like there was something about that. And I thought the concern was because we thought people were going to try to circumvent the subdivision laws by using common driveways. And again, maybe I'm wrong. So that was my comment, Lonnie, before you started talking about the intent was to drive people to use common driveways to avoid larger subdivisions. So maybe that's a place that we want to start, is what was everybody's understanding as to why we want common driveways in the first place.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest concern was a subdivision coming in and then off the subdivision allowing these, and maybe that maybe we put a provision in that we don't allow common drives off of a subdivision, or a new subdivision anyway. Existing subdivisions are.
I don't know if that's possible.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I just mean because someone could make a subdivision. What do you mean by new subdivision? They come back in 2 years and then they split up more lots. It's not. There's a very easy way to get around that.
Yeah, and I can speak to my original concern. I was exactly right. I was worried that someone would basically strategically subdivide to have essentially one row of house with interspersed pork chop lots that went in the back, so you'd have a double row. And I made a little, graphic that showed what you mean. But that I think we just have to be careful because, and when I was speaking with some other people, I think there's possibilities here for getting unintended consequences. Like, Lonnie, if they all looked like your house, I don't think there's any concern for me, but I'm just really worried that this is gonna run away from us a little bit.
What gives you can you give facts other than just a gut feeling or an opinion? Like where have we seen these run away?
I haven't seen it in town. I mean, I don't have the practical experience. You're completely correct. I just when I was talking with Mr. Hunter and some other people that do have experience, they warned me that it can get out of hand.
Right, but even Jack said he had he had tried to break. He was going to bring up one, and then didn't. Then was it then said, well, no, I guess in this case it didn't. That wasn't the case. But okay.
Leon, I'm going to take these in order. Let's have Liana and then Anne first.
I just forgot to lower my hand. Sorry.
I had a feeling that's what that was. Just in response to Lonnie saying that it'll, if a developer sees that they can only put 2 houses in, they're going to put a subdivision in. Well, it depends how much land they have. If they only have, 15 acres, they're not going to put a subdivision in. They'll, use the common driveway to put 2 houses in. So I don't think it's preventing subdivisions. And then if, they had more land and they wanted to put a subdivision in, most likely they'd do an open space subdivision because they wouldn't want to make a long road. They'd want to save money on that. And then you'd have land preserved behind it. Because one of my concerns is too much building tight with wells and septic. We need to have, we want to avoid erosion, water runoff. We want the water to stay, to land and be infiltrated into the ground so that it gets back into our wells. And so, I think that if a subdivision was chosen, it would be an open space subdivision, which I think would work okay.
All right, Jane, then Dylan, and then back to Lonnie.
Back on page 1 under subsection 2, procedural and dimensional requirements, the subsection Roman lowercase 2, it does prevent common driveways from being added at the end of a cul-de-sac. So that goes back to the previous discussion about trying to build off of a subdivision. Just adding that statement is in there already. Don't know if that helps.
Dylan and then Lonnie.
Sure. I was thinking ideas. I don't know. would it help to I know Liana was mentioning the not having multiple in a row. That was, I think, a flag lot discussion. But what if we had, you can't have more than one common drive off of a public road or private road within, I don't know, 2,000 feet or something, throwing in a random number. But like that way you're not having one after another in between every regular house. What was my other thought? My other thought was, what if we split the difference and say 3 instead of 4 or 2?
And then Lonnie, and then Anne.
So yeah, just back to Ann's point about the runoff and what have you. So if we're doing 4 houses on, there's going to be a lot less impervious surface. The roadway is smaller. There is that natural runoff when you're using the common driveway way. And if you're doing a open space subdivision, you still have 8 more of another 4 driveways, and likely the roadway is going to be longer. And with the cul-de-sac and all that, there's a lot more, pavement being used. So again, I don't see how this is that much worse.
Anne.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, I mean, I think setting aside the open space, helps mitigate any issues that you might have. But in terms of the number, I just think it would be a mess for the future. Like maybe initially when everybody knows what's going on, it might be fine, but like in 10, 15, 50 years, I could just see it really being a pain with people not maintaining their part of the deal. If it's in the deed, you can change deeds. It's not necessarily permanent. And, if we did it, why don't we start with 2 and see how it goes, and then if it's like wonderful, add more.
Lonnie.
Again, we've shown it with 4, like how, yeah, I don't know. I don't see, I see the complete opposite happening, right? That, and if we need to put something more concrete in there that allows for or enforces an HOA or something along those lines, then that's what we would need to do to make sure that these are done. I mean, condos do them all. Condominium complexes do them all the time.
We can always add it later.
I'll say I get a lot of complaints. But
you can't add. But you can't add it later. You can't. It won't. We won't be here again. We're not going to go and set up a committee just to add in. Oh well, this has been great for 10 years. Let's add 2 more. Like,
well, planning board can do it without a committee.
What's that?
The planning board can do it without a committee.
No, I
can just bring something to town meeting whenever it wants. So that's an option.
Yeah, I'd say lots of things have been brought to town meeting, zoning bylaw changes, because lots of times you have to tweak them. You put a zoning bylaw in and then you realize that, oh, this doesn't work and you have to make a change. And so, additional driveways could be added.
Yeah, well, we can do it the other way too. If it doesn't work, we can pull them down.
All right, I think we might need to put this to a bit of a vote. Seeing that we do have quorum, I think it would be helpful to get.
Let's make a vote when everybody's here.
Okay. Yeah. Anne?
The other thing too is, I don't think more than 2 would pass a town meeting. I mean, the whole thing will go down, I think, if it's more than 2. So, I mean, that's something to consider also.
Yeah, so
maybe let's say 3 idea. That's all right.
I was with you on that, Dylan.
That's okay. I was trying to make it, bring it together.
Yeah.
I get it.
So do we want to bring this back next week and kind of I mean, it sounds like people are more or less in agreement with the spirit of the bylaw. It's just the main contention is over, I guess, the number of lots you're going to allow off a common driveway, and then potentially if we want to incorporate any sort of buffer system, which I think, I don't really have a strong opinion about. I think the buffer kind of makes sense just because you want to avoid you want to kind of avoid people just completely bypassing the subdivision process if they have, a bunch of lots next to each other. But the number off, I'm not really. I can see the merits on both sides. So I think maybe we bring this back in a couple weeks, and maybe because this has honestly been one of the more contentious things we've discussed, and I think Dylan, Jane, and I, if we want to sort of put together any sort of proposal for buffers, and then maybe look at how other communities are handling this in terms of numbers to kind of draw a comparison. And I think Dylan, if you want to like bring in your experience from other towns as well, because you mentioned this has come up in Uxbridge too.
Yeah.
I think that might just be helpful to bring some more context to this.
Okay, I can do that.
All right.
Dylan, would you compare like-sized towns for your analysis
that.
or for your
Yeah.
comparison?
Yeah, I
Just
work in
'cause,
Uxbridge as well. Just yeah,
Okay, we're just
yeah,
such
but
a small
I can do
community.
research on other towns as well. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
I have like personal experience there because I work in both towns. But yeah.
All right. Do we want to go to flag lots? I mean, I think we're gonna have a similar discussion on flag lots. But we do still have you. I mean, we can meet for like another half hour, I think, if people want to. I would like to get that discussion at least started. So I'm
Do we
going
want
to
to go over to the pros and cons of it first?
yeah.
Okay.
I got that right here. All
Okay,
right.
retreat lot. Do we have a decision on what we want to call this? Flag lot, retreat lot, pork chop? I don't have a preference.
Retreat, I think, is nice.
Okay. It sounds really nice, right? Sounds a little nicer than like
Sounds
kind of
peaceful.
boring, but yeah. Yeah. Okay, so pros, they might be more privacy for the owners if depending on the landscape, because then, they're further back, they're in the woods, they have their own sort of glade. I don't know. Housing stock, everyone knows about, we talk about housing stock issues, so you might still have that low density feel. There won't be like a bunch of houses right on the street. There's some in the back, so then you still get a lot of houses, but it doesn't make the town feel congested. And then that same vein is unlocking more land for development so that we can increase housing stock. Cons, instead of increasing privacy, it might decrease privacy because someone might just live in your backyard, or your front yard, which you might want, you might not. I've personally seen it where like they're right in your backyard and you can like look in their window. So it's, that's not really fun for anyone, but maybe that's what people want. I don't know. Hopefully there's a lot of woods or something and then you get your own like private area. You might lose green space or woods because right now a lot of it's untouched because of lack of frontage or parcels that are just completely like blocked off from road access. So if we're opening up back parcels, then we lose some of those woods in Mendon or fields or whatever we have in the back of like sections of roads that leave this big space available. Longer stretches of roadway because we're going to a back area. Same discussion with shared driveways of just like if it's long, that's however many feet long it is how many chances you have for fire apparatus to have difficulty. That's all. That's all I have.
Right. I'm going to share the bylaw. Right. So Jane and Dylan, if you want to work through this again.
So I guess we already decided, we'll call it retreat lot rather than flag lot. Include the purpose statement and applicability. The bylaw does not allow for the creation of more than one flag lot from a single parcel. And the creation of more than one lot would be covered by the subdivision control law.
I think that's not enforceable, but that's okay, especially A. When someone splits a parcel, they can just go in next year and split it again if they want.
I guess that depends on how much road frontage they have though, right?
Yeah,
You know.
exactly. So, I mean, it might not actually be important in Mendon, but just my thought is that whenever we say something about we're hinging it off of a single lot means nothing to me because that can change every year. Doesn't matter. But I think it's okay to leave. I just know there's the opportunity of someone just coming in the next year and splitting off more.
All right. So do we want to delete those sec or just leave it?
I think leave it unless anyone else has worries.
So then we have access. The flag lot shall have at least 50 feet of frontage on an accepted public way, and the access strip width to the flag lot must remain the 50-foot minimum width requirement at all points from the street to the principal structure on the lot. The access strip length shall be determined from the frontage to the point at which the lot width meets minimum frontage requirements for the district. No structure shall be allowed to be constructed in the access strip. An access driveway shall be constructed and maintained within the strip, which provides adequate access by driveway and turnaround area for emergency vehicles, the same grade requirements as we have in the shared driveway bylaw. The access driveway must be shown on the plan. So then we have, should flag lots be requested on adjacent lots, a common driveway 18 feet in width shall be provided for access to both lots. Only one curb cut shall be permitted for adjacent flag lots. So, I mean, I think there is a question of whether or not we want to allow flag lots on adjacent lots.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What would the difference be between that just being a shared driveway? You know,
So you would have sort of two. I'm trying to illustrate
Two
it on
conforming
camera.
lots, so both lots would have the required frontage. They would just share that driveway.
So
Or with
looking
the
at
flag lot,
one-
one of them
Yeah.
has the reduced frontage and goes to the back of the other one.
Yeah, you might have one flag lot and one regular lot, and the driveway's down the flag lot's like long part, but then it turns off right in the front for that like normal looking house, normally situated house. So you could have that, or we have something where we have multiple smaller frontage areas with the driveway through and then multiple houses in the back lot. Multiple back lots. Sorry.
Yeah, my mom's house in Sutton was like this. So the driveway started, the first house came right off it as soon as you pulled in, and then my mother's driveway went all the way out in the back to the
Yep.
back lot. Yep.
Oh, I was picturing this as two, like a P and a D next, like a, you know what I mean? Like a P and a backwards P next to each, like it's like up on
Yep.
each other.
Yep. So you
Okay.
got the two flag lots, the long parts are abutting,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
they go up like that. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how often that would happen. I mean, we could look at the. I mean, any land is changeable at any time. I just don't know. In the event, should flag lots be requested on adjacent lots? So that's what you're talking about here. A common drive 18 feet in width shall be provided for access for both lots. Only one curb. So I do like this idea, and I think this, again, alludes to less driveway, like Ann was talking about. And I mean, in this instance, it would be only the two anyway. So if the bylaw ends up being two, then the common drive thing already plays into play here.
Yeah. The only thing I'm wondering is, are we looking at then we're subdividing into 4 lots, more like, because definitionally a flag lot, it's splitting off of another lot. So just kind of wondering, looking at like the mechanics of this legally.
We also have flag lots in Uxbridge that were just sort of cut off that way by accident or
Mm,
and then it's not a buildable lot because it doesn't have frontage, and then someone wants to build on it, so they're not asking for a lot creation when they come to the planning board. They're just asking for permission to build, to make it a
So-
buildable lot. So it could be either way.
okay.
And also, but I also believe Uxbridge bylaw doesn't allow
Doesn't-
for adjacent, they
No.
can't touch. Although, trust me, there's a way around that too.
Yeah, there's a way around it. Yeah, there's a
So
way around
it's-
all of it.
Yeah. I
This
mean,
is to like try to get less of, situations that we don't want, but
yep,
it's
I get it.
there's always going to be somebody.
All right. So then the area of the flag lot must be at least 2 times the minimum lot size requirement for the zoning district in which it is located. The width of the lot where the principal building is to be constructed shall equal or exceed the distance normally required for street frontage in the district, and all minimum front, side, and rear setback requirements for the district must be met. The access strip square footage shall not be included in the minimum lot size calculation. Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. I think everything else is pretty just administrative stuff. Yeah, I think the only real question is, this is like a pretty straightforward flag lot bylaw. I think the only real question is if we want to allow it on adjacent lots, but it doesn't sound like that has people have too much problem with that. Oh, Brendan sent an image in chat. Okay. So yeah, what Brendan sent, I think, is something that I was also kind of thinking about. This idea that you could see all these flag lots up on top of each other on the same street without a buffer. And they don't even have shared driveways, and like they couldn't physically have shared driveways in this circumstance. So, I mean, again, essentially, let's say a developer owned all these lots originally, you're potentially looking at, again, we're looking at like an informal subdivision with no subdivision control law.
Yeah, this is why Uxbridge doesn't allow flag lots to touch, is to avoid that.
What is the
So-
road width that's required for a flag lot in this bylaw?
Was I think the same as what was the
Yeah,
18 feet?
Same as common, 18 feet with 50 feet frontage.
Yeah, the reason I flagged it or highlighted it was if you're gonna do something different in the common driveway, you probably want those to
things
be
are good.
consistent.
So just
You
in
get-
that chat, hold on, that in that item that you brought, that the scenario that Brendan just put up there, you'd need a lot with 1,000 feet of frontage to make that work.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
a subdivision.
Huh?
A subdivision
Oh, saying that if you did this inside of a subdivision.
inside of a new
That's
subdivision.
that's what I would be worried about personally.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Do we not allow flag lots inside of a subdivision?
But that's the thing I think we could just get around. They can build the subdivision, leaving lots not buildable, and then they come back in a few years and
Mhm.
pretend that they never had that problem and say, "Oh, we just want a bunch of flag lots now," you know?
You know, you wouldn't even have to pretend. They just
Yeah,
they just-
exactly. It just mean
Um,
like there's new people on the planning board, and
so-
yeah,
Yeah, so I think that, and I know there is way around it, but if I think that we should put a provision in there that they don't touch. I agree with that.
I think so that if we're going to allow common drives, we might want 2 flag lots to touch, but the entire 50-foot frontage width needs to touch as well.
So a P and a P and a backwards P.
Yeah,
And-
Yeah.
and
they can
gains-
go like this,
Yeah.
but they can't go like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we'll do that. Not that. Okay.
however you write that up, there's just pictures of us in here doing this.
Put pictures of Dylan in there.
Yeah.
Picturing the screenshot of Dylan with her hands like super photocopied
gonna
on an
do
old
this.
copy of the bylaw.
Yeah, we'll do something about the access can touch on X number if
Yeah.
we're going with 2, 3, 4, whatever it is,
Uh,
so that we're doing the common drive as well. And
only
then-
when-
Yeah, they can't just touch in the back only.
yeah, so I'm just putting in the notes for later. Allow adjacent only when access portions are adjacent to accommodate a common driveway and reduced
Depending on
impervious
what
area.
number of common drives we're
Yeah.
deciding on in the future.
And we want to limit the total number per subdivision because you could still have the same picture, except now you have interspersed what
We
we,
could do
what we
my
allowed.
thing. We could do my thing about like distance off of the public or private road. So you can only have one every 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet on any given public or private way. Because if we just say like off of a new subdivision, then like I'm saying, they can come back next year. It's not a new subdivision anymore. It's an old subdivision.
Yeah, I mean that's
In a subdivision, right? Because we don't have this issue now per se, right?
yeah. Well, the issue I have with that is if we are going to allow these and then it's a race, like whoever gets it first, you could exclude your neighbors, and maybe that's not fair. I'm not sure.
Can you just limit the amount in a subdivision, no more than 2 flag lots in a subdivision, or, no more than X% of the lots in a subdivision shall be flag lot? I don't know. Thinking out loud.
Can you require that the covenants for a subdivision restrict flag lots or the number of them?
That's a good idea. And
I would say though, in an open space subdivision, that they could be allowed because the idea is that the houses could be put closer together and then, you can have the open space, gives them a little more flexibility.
yeah, the way I would think of it is if we want to, we should only allow adjacent when the access roads are adjacent, and that should kind of be a like air quotes one-time thing, and then you can maybe have like Dylan said, have like street frontage buffer between that arrangement. So that way you kind of avoid the problem of the informal subdivision or the subdivision further subdividing. But you're still kind of allowing that arrangement to exist. Yeah, I think this is something else we might, because I think, again, this is kind of an adjacent parallel discussion to the shared driveway discussion. So I think this is something Dylan, Jane, and I can revisit when we talk this week. Maybe if we meet next week too, and we can kind of bring a modified version of this to the committee.
I know we don't have it set right now, but do we want to meet on the 17th then? I know it wasn't in our calendars originally, but like we left this buffer for this purpose. I just want to make sure everyone else is aware that we're adding a meeting that we haven't discussed yet.
Are we meeting next week also? On the 10th?
I don't think so.
I don't
No.
think so.
Okay,
No.
I have another meeting then.
okay.
Yeah, the 17th works for me if that works for everybody.
Yeah, that should be fine.
Yeah.
All right, so 6 to 7. I'll put it 7:30. Oh, sorry, wrong calendar. All right, and then Gabe, you'll just send me over I'm actually, you don't have to send me an agenda. I'm just gonna use the same agenda.
Cool.
And I'll get that to her now.
Awesome.
So I'm sending everybody invite now, so you have it for your calendars. And I'll get the agenda done in just a moment.
Lonnie, do you have me on email? I don't get anything.
Hold on, let me check.
Too late, basically, but I
No,
would
I can
love to
forward it
get,
to you. I think you're in there. Hold on.
think so.
Oh, wait a minute.
No need to look now. I'm sure you'll finish up.
Yeah, you're in here, Lisa Hilton, Lisa L Hilton at mendonma.gov.
Okay. Thank you.
I think you also,
Okay,
is Frank Nero on the committee?
Yeah, he's on there too.
Okay, because he doesn't look at the town email, so like, I mean, you have to include the town email,
Yeah.
but you should include his personal email, because otherwise he's not gonna get it. I can send that to you if you need it.
I have it right here. GN, yeah,
It's like at Napic Law or something like that.
GNL, GN Law. Yeah, I just forwarded it to him.
Okay.
Oh, wait, let's do the. Did you get the meeting minutes? Does anybody have any changes to those minutes?
No, they looked pretty good for me. I wasn't at the last one, but I reviewed the recording and it looks good.
Other than I don't know who the hell Ronnie Tinio is, but.
Your cousin.
I'll have him fix that one, but I'll accept a motion to accept those minutes with the amendment of changing my name.
Must have been autocorrect.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second,
All those in favor, Ann Meza,
Bye.
Hi.
Brendan and Chanel.
Aye.
Leanne Moore.
I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't here, so.
Okay. Lisa Hilton
Bye.
and Lonnie Tinio. Aye. All right. Anybody have anything else?
Thanks, guys.
I just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
night.